Oops. Hey. Jesse! Hello, hello, hello! Holy smokes. Hello, everyone. How is everyone this morning? Shane Ross, good morning. All right, we've got a wild animal here. I'll just wait a few minutes until everyone comes on in. Hanging out with Rubes this morning. Hey, Matt, how's it going, mate? I'll be asking you all the bird questions, Matt. Morning, Dylan. Morning, Lane. G'day, Kate. Hey, Nat, how are you? Jody! Jody's in quarantine out in the bush camping on about, 7 or 8 days of 14 now, Jody? Good on you. Good morning, Reef to Rainforest. Hey, Lane. Ruby's getting a daily dose. All right, we've still got a few minutes before we kick off, so we'll just chill out for a bit. Good morning, Lani, Mamas, Doolans, I Heart Africa. Day 9. So our friend here, Misguided Travels over in WA, she's in day 9 of 14 quarantine and she's camping for it. Day 9, no wine left. Oh well. G'day Trisha, how are you? All right. Good morning, Bree. Good morning, Papaimed. I can't say that one real well, sorry. Good morning, Mummy Hump 85. Folks, while you're all waiting, I would love to hear who you got with you, what ages, if it's just yourself, just send through a bunch of numbers if you like, 30, 10, 12, or whatever you want to send through. I'd love to see what kind of age groups we got here, and I'll try and make sure we cover enough content that covers them all. So if you can, send through the ages of whoever you've got with you, and then we're about to rock and roll in a couple of minutes. I'll just wait a couple of minutes until everyone gets in, and we'll move along. All right, yeah, I've got to do something about that in a minute, Matt. So we'll see how we go. All right, so my plan for audio today is if everyone can go into their emojis and bring up the snake emoji, because snakes can't hear, they have no ears. If you can't hear, can you just start sending snake emojis through and I'll see it? And then I'll just make sure that either the connection's good or I'm speaking loud enough or I'm close enough. I've got a little microphone there if I need to use it, but I don't think I will. All right, sweet. Well, let's get kicked off, everyone. So welcome to some free ecology talks. I just wanted to give back in the way I can. A lot of us are at home at the moment due to the situation, so I thought we would share some love. And I'm an ecologist by trade. I currently run tours up to Cape York, and this year we were going to be heading over to Kimberley and Northern Territory, but they kind of got canned, so we're doing some other things with our time. This morning I thought I'd show some of our world with you and teach everyone, this is kids and adults, how to see stuff that's hiding in plain sight. Now, a lot of our animals, Australian especially, are very cryptic. They hide really well, and I'm talking small and big. You know, if you look at African animals, my brother's a guide over there, Shane Ross Photo. Those animals aren't so cryptic. They're big, they stand out, you see them everywhere. But a lot of our Australian animals, because of the heat or a lot of other things, are quite cryptic. So today we're just gonna walk around my yard here, and I'm gonna try and find a bunch of different things for you to show you. And I'd love for you to go around your yard after we're done and just see what you can find that you didn't think was going to be there. Now, I've been at this place for a couple of years now, so I'm starting to get familiar with what's around, but at the same time, I'm still finding lots of different things. So today, our theme is observations. Observations is one of the main parts of ecology. So there's usually observations, you do a kind of a test, and you have modelling, which is quite complex later on. But today it's all about looking around, finding what you can see and observing things. Now, I've got a couple of tools and a couple of suggestions before we go down the backyard. If you see any ecologists in the field, they'll often have these two things with them, at the bare minimum. It's a notepad and a pencil. Now, the reason I use a pencil is because if your book ever gets wet, the ink doesn't run, so the pencil stays pretty good. So a good ecologist has a top-notch, about $1 worth notebook, stays in your top pocket, and you just keep notes. The guys like David Attenborough, Steve Irwin, I guarantee you, they were taking notes as they were going out bush, so it's a really cool skill to have. That lives in my top pocket there, and if I'm ever doing studies or research, that's in my pocket with me. Of course, if you have your phone and you're good at using your phone, you can definitely use that too to take notes. Hey, good morning everyone. See some more people joining, awesome. Now, a couple other things that you'll often see ecologists and guides carry. A good pair of binoculars. It lets you observe behaviour from afar without disturbing animals, which is really key. Really big thing for birds, because birds can be quite flighty and they're always in trees quite a ways away from you. And then guidebooks. Now, not everyone knows everything. I don't know everything. I have my specific areas where I'm quite experienced. Feral pigs and sea turtles are one of my fortes. On Thursday, actually, we're going to be doing a chat on sea turtles for anyone that wants to join in. But field guides, these are priceless. I have a whole stack of them. Get them for your kids. They're usually about $30 a pop. You can get them locally or you can order them online. I've probably got about 30 different field guides. I'm not great at everything. There's a guy called Matt in here. He's phenomenal at birds, runs local tours. My bird skills are pretty average, especially if you can compare me against other birders. So field guides are great. You can go through these and you can find out all sorts of quirky little bits of information about animals. So my uniform isn't too fantastic. That's it. I always have a little on the side here. I've got a Leatherman. That helps me out in the bush whenever I need to do stuff, cut up some cake or whatnot. But right now, we're going to go down in the backyard and start observing some things and see what we can find. Now, just recently, I actually noticed, so we've got lots of spangled drongos in the Cairns area. So a black bird, quite shiny, quite beautiful. Now, in this tree behind, I think we might have lost connection temporarily. We'll see if that comes back. I'm going to put this on a stand in a minute, so it'll be nice and stable. But while we're here, yeah, beauty. Hello, Nicholas. Good morning, mate. All right, so this tree up here, it's a Eodia, which is a food plant for the blue Ulysses. But recently I saw, and I just observed it, this was just from sitting down on the balcony, and I saw some spangled drongos on this tree, picking leaves off and just throwing them down to the ground. Now, from a human perspective, that seems pretty nonsense and we don't know what's going on because why would you pick off perfectly good leaves that could be eaten or the tree needs them? But it might have been a courtship display or he's pruning those branches up there to have a clearer area where he can perform courtship displays. So dancing for one of his lady friends. So there's lots of different things there. That was just an observation that I had in about 5 minutes from the balcony. So there's always lots of cool things we can see. Now later on we are going to come back to these guys. They are quite beautiful and really cool. She's out ready to go. But I'm going to show you her later. That is Pandora. She's a black-headed python. We're going to get them out at the end of the session anyway. Super cool. And there's one more over there. So Pandora is bigger than me. And Calypso is my carpet python. She's bigger than her again. So they're about 8 and 7 foot, which is pretty big. Alrighty. How are we all going? Can everyone hear all right? Alright, so here we go. Now the first thing I'm going to show you today is a little jaunt down into just digging around in your garden to find what's in there. Now there's a common misconception in a thing called a witchetty grub, and I'm going to see if I can find one that looks like it now, because witchetty grubs are actually from the central part of Australia, and they're a moth. So let's see, I'm going to have a little dig. I've already dug up some of this before trying to find them, so let's hopefully find one or two in here. Here we go, beauty. Look at this. All right. Get them over there. There we go. So what we got here are a couple of little scarab beetle larvae. Now these are beetles. So scarab beetles are a family of beetles. They have like your Christmas beetles, the green ones that you see around Christmas time. The rhinoceros beetles, the ones with the big horns that they fight and make that funny noise. Then there's cane beetles, all other sorts. So they're all scarab beetles. Dung beetles are in there too. So these guys here that you see wriggle in my hand, I can't identify them right down to the exact species of bug that they are, but they are a scarab beetle larvae and not a witchetty grub. So we normally just call these witchetty grubs. Oh, poor little fella. If I leave them out, the birds will come by and get them before too long, so I'll put them back in a second. But these guys are not witchetty grubs, they are scarab beetle larvae. So witchetty grubs are actually a moth that comes from Central Australia, and it's just a term that's caught on because they all look pretty similar to this. Lots of people used to eat them, and I'm sure you've heard stories of people eating these guys too, but they're pretty cute, eh? So you can see he's got his little legs on there. Let's see if we can get him back a bit further so it focuses. He's got legs on there, and he's got his little mandibles and his little head. So before long, he's gonna go into like a chrysalis that a butterfly has. It's called pupating. He's going to go into that, and he's going to shed the skin that he has here now, and then he's going to form his wings. There's hard wings on the outside and there's soft wings on the inside that little cocoon that he makes, and then he's going to come out as a fully grown bug. Now there's two in bugs. This is a cool one for any bug nerds out there, but bugs have two kinds of life cycle. One is incomplete and the other is complete. So these guys have what's called a complete life cycle. If you want to get really fancy, you can call them endopterygotes, which means endo, their wings, pterygote, their wings are formed on the inside of the cocoon, whereas an incomplete means that their wings slowly grow over time, and they're pretty cool. You'll see a lot of insects. So if you go to a plant, we'll see if we can find one later, but if you go to a plant that you have in your yard and you find a little insect and he doesn't have wings but he looks like he should, and you look really closely and he's got tiny little baby wings, those are incomplete life cycle insects. So they actually shed and shed and shed, like cicadas actually, and shed until they finally develop their fully grown wings, and then they become adults. So this guy, full life cycle, he'll start he'll come out as a larvae or be an egg, go into a larvae, and then he'll actually shed this skin here and grow and grow and grow as a larvae, and then eventually he's going to do that chrysalis kind of thing where he goes into a cocoon, he sheds this skin, stays in there for a while and pupates, and then comes out as a scarab beetle. Poor little fellow, he's getting a bit stressed, so I'll put him back in the soil. That's pretty cool, eh? That's bugs. That's right in your own yard. If you follow these guys around, now they love anything. If you dug in your yard and just look through the mulch in your own yard, I reckon you'll probably find a few of those. Especially if mum or dad or you have just recently put some mulch down in a pot, you'll find them there. Yeah, definitely, I reckon. Have a go. Eat it. No, I'm not going to eat it. It's too friendly. Look at him. He's so cute. Let's take a break there, and if anyone has any questions, type them through, and then we're going to go to the next little bit of the yard and see what else we can find. Any questions? I'll give you a couple of seconds to send them through. Good morning, Aidan and Dylan from Gordonvale. And g'day, Sammy. Hey, Tani from Cohen. How's it going up there? Must be pretty locked down by now. Oh, you clown. All right, we're going to move on. If there's any questions, ask me at the end of the next one. So that's bugs anyway. There's going to be quite a lot of bugs today because they form a massive part of the diversity of species on our planet. All right, I've locked you into our little device here, and we're going to go for a walk. Off to the front garden now. Now, I've got a few things I want to show you today. I've been looking around trying to find some cool things to talk about. One is a really beautiful local butterfly. We might not see the butterfly today, but at the very least we should be able to see some of its eggs. Now, just in here, I've got a bit of roadworks going on over there too, so... Now, just in here we've got a vine that is very important for this particular butterfly. 8-year-old wants to know if they have a butt. Do witchetty grubs have legs? I believe, let me think. Not well. So witchetty grubs, being a moth, gnat, will have kind of not quite what you would call legs, but they have those little things that move along. So kind of like legs, but not quite. Before they pupate, if you look at a caterpillar that's a moth or a butterfly, they have those little kind of sucker legs. So kind of, yeah. Do they have a butt? Yeah, they definitely have a butt. Those little bugs back there, yep, definitely got a butt. So they eat what the detritus, the mulch essentially, and what's in there, and then they consume that and pass it out through their butt. So yeah, even though they can it kill you? No, it definitely can't kill you. I don't know, unless they grow really big in a horror movie or something. I think you'd be fine. Alrighty. Now let's have a look at this guy here. So this is a vine called Dutchman's Pipe. Now, I highly recommend, if anyone wants to get one of these, to see Australia's biggest butterfly in your own backyard. Now, I planted these probably a couple of months ago. I have a bit of bad luck every now and then with these and they die. A caterpillar might chew through one and kill it, like ringbark it. But this one's going really strong now. So I'm going to take this off again and we're going to walk through here. And I'm just going to show you what this vine looks like in the sun. Here we go. So it's really beautiful, called a Dutchman's Pipe. Aristolochia acuminata is its full name. So that everything has a general name, which we all know, like humans, tigers, that kind of thing. And then we come down to what's called a scientific name. So scientific names are very specific. In this case, the general name for this is Dutchman's Pipe vine, one of the native ones. The species, or the scientific name, is Aristolochia acuminata, 2 words. So that refers to the genus and the species. Now, there are multiple of these species in the world, and some of these are toxic. So there's one that's been imported into Australia, and it's actually toxic to our native butterflies, which is a big shame. So this plant itself is toxic, but our butterflies have adapted. We've got a little butterfly flying around at the moment. So there's three butterflies that actually nest on this one. Oh, awesome, Mrs. Wilson. That's good. I'll teach you some stuff about it. Let's see if I can get it all. Now, there's a butterfly flying around. I think it was a glasswing. So we've got 3 kinds of them here. One is our big Cairns birdwing butterfly. Then the other 2 are glasswings. So one is a red-bodied glasswing, and the other is called a big greasy, essentially. Quite beautiful. But if we look closely, now let's see if we can do this. Now, just here where my fingers are, and it's going to be hard to focus being that far away, but there's a tiny little orange dot. That's actually an egg from a butterfly that deposited in the last few days. Now, that'll be one of the glasswings. It's quite a small egg, that one, and they're a smaller butterfly. But yesterday I was here and I saw a massive female Cairns birdwing come down, and we watched her ovideposit, meaning she deposited her eggs on this leaf just here. And right there you can see it's quite a bit bigger where my thumb is. That is the egg of a Cairns birdwing. So that'll take a few days, and then it'll eventually hatch into a tiny little caterpillar about this big. Now, as we go, I'm going to come along here and just see if we can find any of these little buggers. But they're quite cute, and they grow about this big in the end, so about as big as your thumb. And they're beautiful. So they have a colouring, and thanks to my brother for reminding me. But it's called aposematic colouring. So it's colouring that shows that the animal is poisonous. So these caterpillars, because this vine is poisonous, when they eat it, they actually consume the toxins, and they have a way of storing the toxins in. They have what looks like spines, but they're quite soft, but they're red and orange. And so that's called aposematic colouring. It's a colouring that says to other animals that want to eat it, don't eat me, you might get poisoned, you might have a sickness. So we don't have any big ones on this vine at the moment, but you can tell just here that there's been one that's eaten away. So they're just starting to come back this season. And it's been quite hot, so we didn't see many come through and the vine was recovering. But this vine is toxic. But the 3 species that eat it have adapted to it. Now that vine that comes from overseas, if we plant that here, and make sure when you buy these, you don't get that other species. It's still, I think, an Aristolochia, but it's the wrong species. If you get that one, the butterflies can actually die. They'll eat the poison and they're not used to it. So what happens? All right, hold on. Do the glasswings butterfly, do they have see-through the wings? Yeah, that's exactly right. Their wings are pretty see-through. That's why they call them glasswings. And the Cairns is called the Cairns birdwing butterfly, and the other 2 little ones are called glasswings. So the Cairns birdwing, I reckon when its wings are out, it's nearly the size of my palm. So if I grabbed it like that and its wings were spread out, it would be nearly the size of my palm. So it's an absolute whopper, biggest in Australia. Now, final little cool thing about this, when the female comes along and she wants to deposit her eggs on here, which turn into the caterpillars that eat this leaf, what she does is she actually tastes the leaf with her legs. She has little receptors on her legs. They actually taste the leaf to see if it's the right species or not, and hopefully that'll help her make sure she doesn't pick that other one, but sometimes they do. Alright, so that's a really cool little vine. Oh, okay. Now, next thing I want to show you is really, really cool. This is unreal. So, pollination is a massive part of this whole world. As you know, bees are very important. I just got to chuck this underneath. We're just starting to get some rain again. So I've got this little umbrella tripod device going on here, so we're just going to chuck it under there. Now, while we're doing this, I've just pinched a flower here off the vine, just to show you what we're going to talk about now. Might need to get some light on me. Here we go. It's all falling apart. There we go. Now this, hold on, we're still not quite there. There we go, that's better. All right. Now this flower, it was sitting up like this on the vine. What happens as an adult butterfly, it comes to feed on the nectar. And so it puts its proboscis into there. And now lots of different animals have proboscises. Flies have proboscises, mosquitoes have a proboscis, that's what they put into you. The proboscis of a butterfly is long and it unravels to go right down and drink the lovely sweet nectar that's in this. Now, it gets sugar and protein when it gets to. Hi, we're in Cairns. Sorry, my mummy thing? How do the butterflies know what it is? That is a brilliant question. Through years and years of evolution, they've come to know that that's a food plant for them, and their their receptors on their feet must be able to taste that plant and just say this is the one. Now, so this little flower here, that's the flower for our vine. When the butterfly comes in, it gets a drink, it gets sugar and proteins, all right, out of this, but it also returns a favour. Now, I'm going to try and put that against, hold on, it's not working real well. All right, let's just go there for now. When the butterfly comes in, it gets a drink, and its head touches all of this part here. Now, if you were to have one of these at home, I don't know if you can see it there quite easily or not because the camera's not going to focus, but that is full of little hairs here, and on these hairs is going to be pollen. Now, pollen is how flowers produce, or is how flowers mate, essentially, and they eventually fertilise the seeds that were within. And so this butterfly gets a drink, rubs against all this pollen here on its head, and then takes it to the next flower and does the same. And so that's how we get the variation in plants, animals, all sorts of things. This is plant mating, essentially. So the flower gets a drink, he rubs, the butterfly gets a drink from the flower, rubs his head here, goes to another plant's flower or the same one, and he has the male pollen from that one, which eventually goes into the female part of the flower, and that actually, they're essentially mating, and they can fertilise a seed then and have a seed that is viable. I'm going to get absolutely saturated, but it's so worth it. Alright, here we go. Now, we've got a pawpaw tree here too, which is really cool. So while we're here, we're going to keep talking about pollination for a bit. Free shower for me today. All right, so we've got a pawpaw here. Now, I've got another animal I'm going to show you in a second that absolutely loves these flowers. And you all know it, and you've all seen it somewhere. But it loves these probably because of the colour of the flower. Now, each flower that you see around you, you've got yellows, reds, blues, purples, whites, usually mean that they're for a different pollinator, so a bird or a butterfly. Bees, it turns out, can't really see red. They can see just past red, blues and greens, purples, whites, and they can actually see ultraviolet. So a lot of these flowers you see here, right in the middle, you might notice if you go for a look around your yard later or look at a flower, look in the centre of it, and the centre's quite often a little bit darker, it looks a bit different to the rest of the flower. That often has ultraviolet, spectrums on it, and it targets things like bees. So it says, bee, this is where the pollen is, come here, rather than going on the outside. So it's like a little target. Are the pawpaw flowers edible? Geez, I don't know. You can eat the pawpaws and raw. Yeah, it's saturated here. We can get some good rain. So if you birds, for example, going back to pollination and colours, so the colour of the flower can often determine what comes, although it's not exact. Bees love white, blues, violets, but not really red, so they can't see red, but they can see ultraviolet. Now, birds absolutely love red flowers. So if you've got red flowers in your yard, birds are going to be there. They're going to be coming for those flowers because they absolutely love them. So different colours, different pollinators, and each flower has a different anatomy to it as well. So animal and plant relationships are so key. And you might have seen recently that everyone's talking about bees being the most important animal on the planet. It's quite possibly true because we need them to pollinate all of our plants so that they can have seeds that are viable. Now, so there's also an island. It's called Macquarie Island down on the way to Antarctica that actually has no pollinating bees or birds. It actually just has flies. And so apparently on that island, a lot of the flowers there are whitish, because flies love white flowers, that kind of thing. So yeah, really cool little side tip there. Oh, there we go. So we've got some yellow flowers here. Same sort of thing. The animals are going to come along, probably butterflies, things with the long proboscises and bees, and sip that nectar, and they'll actually fertilise that flower too. So that's really cool. Now here's the little guys that I wanted to show you, and they are absolute little corkers. They're so cute. And we might even just set up here and watch these guys for a bit, because I was watching them this morning, and their behaviour was really cool. All right, here we go. So these are called sugar bag bees. I'm not going to get the name right of the genus, but it's something like Triponagula. Someone can correct me in the notes if they know it. But there's 11 species of stingless native bees that we have in Australia, and this is one of them just here. Totally friendly. You'll see them around. We know them as sugar bags. Back in the day, our Indigenous people of Australia, our Aboriginals, love sugar bag. It means when they're out in the bush and if they saw a tree that had bees around it, they would actually go to that tree, dig out the part of that tree that had the nest in it, and they'd get the honey from it. So that's what they call them, sugar bags. And these little bees often are called colloquially sugar bag bees. So let's see if I can just get that to focus and zoom in. Here we go. Try and get him there. It's a bit tricky. In relation to butterflies being poisonous, I don't think so. Not that I know of in Australia, but that's not certain. Hard one. You probably have to look it up. Research. Monarch, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Harani. Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Now I've got to say it. Tetragonula. There you go. Can they bite? No. So these bees don't bite. They have mandibles, which means the little kind of things at the front of their mouth that they use to either feed or whatever. But they don't bite. The most annoying thing about them is if you go past them when you're mowing or something, you stir them up, they get stuck all in your hair and in your face, but they're pretty cute, really pretty, and they don't have stings, so no, they don't hurt you. What would happen if you make them feel threatened? I've seen them kind of flock in little like buzzing areas, but that was just a weird thing they were doing one day, hanging around with each other, flying around, and I happened to walk through it and got stuck, but they weren't aggressive by any means. They don't have a sting, so they don't really have a defensive mechanism. They would probably just fly out or try and protect that little entrance there. So normally in the wild, you'd see those in a hollow log or a hollow tree somewhere. Here in urban areas, I bet probably half of us have got some in their house if you've got wooden houses. If you have a look around, they actually go into the little hollows of your wood, and they'll take all the resin and the pollen and whatever in there, and there'll be a queen in there too. So a really cool thing with these guys being insects is they've got different castes. So castes means you can have different essentially jobs in the species. So let's look at termites for example. They have workers, they have reproductive castes, they have the queen, and then there's soldiers as well. And so each of those, even though they're the same species, can look entirely different. So inside that little nest there's actually going to be a queen that's reproductive, and a lot of the workers are flying out to go and get nectar to feed the hive, feed the babies, feed the larvae and all that. So really cool little stuff. G'day! Awesome. Now, let's go to some creepy, slippery, slimy, messy things. Now, I might spend a little bit of time here because these guys are pretty cool, and it's a little project you can actually do at home if you like by yourself or with the kids or anything. But I've got a little worm farm here, so we're trying to be a little bit more environmentally friendly, and so we've actually got our waste in our bins, in our main bin now down to nearly zero. So each week there's not much that comes out of it. A lot of it's from composting, our little worm farm here, and soft plastics. But here's our little worm farm now. These creatures are incredibly important. All over the world, there's 6,000 species of earthworm in the world, and we've got about 1,000 of them here in Australia. So they're wonderful, wonderful animals. Let's pick a bunch out. Oh, and we've got a skink in here too. Oh, he's getting away. Hold on. All right, so this is our worm farm. Really simple setup. If anyone wants to do one, before I grab a worm, I'll show you what we're looking at. Essentially, I've got two bins there. Now, one fits inside the other, the same size. They definitely don't need to be that big. Drill holes in the bottom of this one, so it drains all the liquid, drains into that one. And what you'll get is this really good worm juice fertilizer, and so you can put that on your plants at home. Really strong, really valuable. I use one of these old things to spray on the garden to take it around, but super simple. All you really need is 2 containers. I blacked mine out down here because worms do have photoreceptors on the head that tells them if it's light or dark. So I blacked out the side so it's dark down below, and the top's still light but it's covered up. And so you put all your scraps in here. They're recyclers, so worms will eat things in the soil and they'll break it down and make it into something useful for plants and other things. All right, here we go. We got a live one. Here's a worm. Beautiful. Now see where my finger. Hold on. I'm going to put this up here again. There we go. Beauty. All right. My kids call it worm tea. Yeah, it's called worm tea. Brilliant. What do earthworms do? How big are earthworms? There's a giant earthworm. David Attenborough has a YouTube thing on it, or a documentary. You'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure he holds them up high, and they're touching the ground, coming both sides around, so they can get huge. A lot of the ones we commonly see are about this big, maybe a bit bigger, maybe some nearly as wide as my shoulders, but not entirely huge. But super cool animals. So let's go through these guys. What do earthworms do? They essentially eat food in the soil, so things that are breaking down, leaf matter, food matter, they break it down into more simple compounds that the plants and the soil can use and need. So they're really important for soil health. Now this little guy I've got here, let's have a look. At one end of his body, which is this end here, you'll see there's a ring there. Now that's the head end. In here is all his important stuff. Now that's where his brain is, his hearts are. So worms can have 1 to 5 pairs of hearts, sometimes more. depending on the species. So they have blood vessels as well, which is cool. So the blood vessels run along the top and the bottom of their body. They have a nervous system, so they can feel things. That's why this guy's reacting to me. Now, my hands are a little bit moist, but I'm going to put a little bit more water on them because worms do like moisture, but not too much of it, right? All right, I've got a question. Aiden and Dylan, g'day mates. Want to know what to put in the tub to start a worm farm? Okay, we'll get to that at the end. I'll go through it. Now, this guy here, he breathes through his skin, so it's really important, kind of like frogs, to have somewhat moist hands when you're touching him. That's why when it rains a lot or there's chemicals in the ground, you'll see all the worms come on the top right. It's because they can't breathe, because they breathe through their skin, so they've got to come up to get air, or there's a toxin that they don't like that they're absorbing through their skin. So their gas exchange is actually through the surface of their skin. Now to do that, they have to secrete like a mucus onto their edge there, which makes them look kind of shiny and wet, which is really cool. But that's how they breathe. So they breathe through their skin, and they need to be moist to do it. Now this guy, you can see he's moving. Where is he? Here we go. You can see he's moving along. He's heading to my hands, to my fingers. Now the end just here, that's where his brain is. So he's got a tiny little brain in there as well. Hearts, little chambered hearts that pump blood around, and his reproductive organs. So these guys are called hermaphrodites, meaning they have male and female reproductive organs. Now, pretty cool, but when two worms meet, they actually have to go opposite each other, so like this, and they mate that way. So they exchange two lots of sperm, and they receive it, and then that sperm fertilizes eggs, which then get deposited in like a cocoon. So a rough life cycle of a worm is about 60 days from when they're an egg to hatching. They hatch as live little worms, so out of the cocoon, out of the eggs, they hatch as live little cute little worms, and then they grow up into reproductive adults, and that process takes roughly about 60 days. So why do they come to the surface when it rains, and can they regrow? Yes. When it rains, the water penetrates the soil and essentially floods it. It's saturated, so it's just water. There's not enough oxygen in the soil and around the worm for them to be able to breathe, for gas exchange through the surface of their skin. So they have to come to the surface to be able to get oxygen again, essentially. Can they regrow themselves? Yes, depending on where they get cut. Some worm species, not these ones, but some actually reproduce by splitting, as in they do it intentionally. But these guys here, if you cut him at his bum end or down past where all his important stuff is, he'll survive, but he won't grow into two worms. So his head is up here, and the rest of it's his bum. So the oldest part of his body is actually at his head. And when they grow this way. So right down here is essentially what you would call his tail, and that is the newest cell or segment. So worms are called annelids, which means they're segmented worms. They have segments all along it. If you were to look really closely at this guy, you'd see little rings. So go out in your yard, find a couple of worms, tease mum with them, have some worm tea, whatever you want to do. But these guys have got segments all along them, and as they grow, they actually grow a segment from the bum end of them. So they add it on at the end. Yeah, very much like a snake. They nearly move in the same way. So the way they move is called peristaltic movement. So we've got a peristalsis in our body as well. It's like muscles contracting. So these guys on each of those segments have about 4 bundles of what's like hair. It's called ketae or setae, depending on who you ask. They have these bundles of hair, and I can just about feel it on me now. They go through the soil by pushing, shrinking and contracting different muscles. So this one, let's see if we can see it at the moment. He's going to shrink some parts of his muscle and then contract the others and pull himself up. And when they're in the soil, the way they do that, I'm just got to put the umbrella on the top again. There we go. Wonderful. Go tropics. When they do that, those bundles of hairs in the soil actually hold on. And so they widen that bit of the segment by contracting it. So they contract it this way, but it widens that way. And with those hairs, that actually holds onto the soil, and then it pulls the rest through. And so those elongated bits behind it pull through, and that's how they move. So really cool little creatures. Hey, John, you got a worm farm. That's awesome, man. They're so good, eh? Great fertilizer, brilliant for your gardens, and just great all around. Lots of fun. Now this guy's probably pretty average. There's probably some bigger ones in there and quite a lot smaller ones. I'm going to put him back in because he's probably had enough of me. There we go. Now to make a worm farm, super simple, great project for home. All you really need is 2 containers, so Nelly bins, any of the containers that you might have at home. So like this one standing up here, they can do the trick. Usually go smaller. The problem with the bigger you get is when you have to lift the top one out, which has got the soil and the worms in it, they get really heavy. Yes, that's right, Jada. So you can identify the head end by that band around it. That's where all your cerebral ganglia, your hearts and the brains and that's right. So your worm farm, all you need 2 of those containers that fit nicely inside each other, and there's a bit of space on the bottom of one. Some soil, some vegetables, and paper. You've got to put things like newspaper in there every now and then, and then mix it all up. All I did, you don't need to go to a farm or Bunnings or Mitre 10 to buy worms like they suggest. Go and get a patch of soil out of your yard that's got some worms in it. There should be plenty now because it's nice and wet. And just chuck a bit of that soil in there, and they'll actually reproduce in there. Before you know it, you'll have more worms than you can handle. Chuck some paper in every now and then. Don't make it too wet, and stir it up every now and then. But there's plenty of information on the internet if anyone wants to make a worm farm anyway. Guess where we're going? We're going to go and check out the snakes. Yeah, kids know so much, so curious. All right, so today we're going to say g'day to, first of all, Calypso. Now, little disclaimer about Calypso at the moment. She is shedding, so she's about to shed her skin. When she sheds, you can see her colours get quite dull. She's normally really beautiful, and her eye caps on her eyes go opaque, like a milky colour. So her visibility isn't the best through that. Now, she's a really calm snake. If I wanted to, I could skip rope with her and she wouldn't care. I used to take her and show her at kids' schools and all sorts of things, so she's super friendly. I have noticed the first time I've ever seen it on her, I've had her for nearly 15 years now, is she's got a bit of a mark on one of her eyes, and I'm just hoping it's not an infection from all the humidity around at the moment. But I'm just going to let her shed in the next couple of days to find out. Now we're going to pull her out, just have a look. She's lovely. We got her out. I took her out for a walk yesterday, so this is Calypso's enclosure, and you can see just in here, I'll take you a little bit closer. There she is in there. She's on the branch having a chill, and you can only just see her eyes there. So we'll get Calypso out and have a little look at her. She's a carpet python, eh? Really pretty little carpet python. I say little, but she's about 7 or 8 foot. Alright, sorry guys. Now, trickiest thing about getting a snake out when it's 8 foot is it has so much snake that wraps around other stuff that it's hard sometimes to get them out. So give me a couple of minutes. Thank you. Beauty. Alright, we had a win. One snake. Let's go and have a look. Now, she's just eaten a couple of days ago now. Really important. Highly recommend not trying to catch snakes in the wild. Not a great idea, and they don't particularly like it either. I know Calypso pretty well. When she's young, she used to nip me a bit, but that's quite common for these kind of hatchlings, but since then she's been really beautiful. You've got to be a little bit more careful with them when they're shedding, simply because their visibility is low, but she's quite trustworthy in me at the moment. Now, I've got her in a new enclosure, which hasn't worked out as ideal as I wanted because it's got steel in it, and she's been rubbing her bottom lip on the steel in the cage a little bit. It's got steel like gauze instead of like window mesh, and so that's a bit of a problem, but I'll show you just on this side. I'm going to have to grab her head, which I don't really like doing because she's a sweetheart, but I need to do it to show you. So here we go. So you can see here, Poor darling. I know. Alright. You can see on Calypso her eye's quite milky at the moment. That's that eye cap that's just about to go and come off with the shed. So that goes milky. Now on the bottom of her lip here, poor darling, I'll just show you this bit and then we'll go to the other snake. Just on the bottom of her lip here, you can see these pits. They're holes. Now they're heat sensors, and she's got them on the front of her face too. But they actually help her sense heat and pick up animals because she loves hunting mammals, birds. She'll eat reptiles as well. But those heat sensing pits, because lots of animals stay in that 35, 36, 37 degree body temperature range, those pits help her sense animals. Now they have no ears. I'll show you on the other snake later, but they have no ears. So they use vibration quite a lot, which I imagine everyone knows. But they also have a forked tongue, which is really cool. Now let's see if we can show you. There you go. Calypso's forked tongue's coming out. She's having a sniff. Now, the forked tongue itself is really interesting. So think about the forked tongue. It comes out like this. And on each of those parts of the forked tongue are sensors that are sensing taste, smell, those kind of things. Now, the way a snake works to find which way the animal goes is it touches both of those bits of the forked tongue to the ground to smell. And whichever side has the stronger smell, so on that fork, that's why it's evolved to be a forked tongue, whichever side has the stronger smell on it, it's going to follow that way. So if this side has a bit stronger smell, it's going to go this way and go more until it starts to track that. So it uses that forked tongue to essentially track the prey. All right, Calypso, she's a python. She is a carpet python, so she is a Moralia spilota. There's a lot of funny talk at the moment about species and subspecies of these, but these guys aren't poisonous at all. So we've got a lot of species of python in Australia. No pythons are poisonous. So we've got colubrids, which are essentially rear-fanged or no-fang snakes. We've got lapids, which are the ones that you've got to worry about. They're your browns, your taipans, front fangs. Quite often nasty venom. We're in Australia, we've got some really good stuff. Oh yeah, Beauty, what kind of snake? Is her tongue blue? Yeah, it's got a bit of a coloration to it like that, absolutely. Let's see if it comes out again. There we go, yes. There you go, kind of bluey black. John, you've held a snake, how can you tell if it's a python? Look, it comes with experience. The best way I say to people is, it's like when you go to your town, let's say you're in a small town, you recognise faces around you. So when I grew up on bananas in Tully, started learning about snakes then, went to uni, was always out catching snakes. As you go, it's like faces of people around you. You start to know who's who. I can look at most snakes in this area now and go, that's a 99% chance until I get closer and have a look at it. It's image recognition. Pythons, they vary. It's too hard to give you lots of defining features, but patterns like this are quite typical of your carpet pythons that we have in the area. Their heads are often quite large compared to their body, so a distinct head from their neck. If you see the pits on the bottom, that's a python. You had a snake outside your window, that's no good at all. Oh no, hey Tony, how you going? So yeah, it's quite hard to tell until you get in it. All I can say is it's just experience. It's just time on the ground, looking at different snakes out in the field. You can do so much with guidebooks, but it never replaces having a look at them. A lot of the ways people go looking for snakes is just on the road. Don't recommend it. If you go with someone that's really experienced, but it's a great way to learn about them. That's largely how I learnt about these guys anyway, so super cool. Now, I want to show you a couple other things. Now, see these scales here, how big they are, and see how I'm just going to try and grab one. I can kind of feel underneath it a little bit. That's essentially how our land snakes move. Now, if you look at sea snakes, don't really have these so much. So they're our ventral scales. Now, on these, she has really big ventral scales. That's how she moves. So nearly like a worm, not quite the same. She'll move those forward, grip the ground. She uses those to latch on the ground and then moves forward in kind of a wave. So it's really amazing they do it. If you get a snake on your hand, let's see if I can reproduce it here. So she right there is using her scales against my skin and she's moving. Really beautiful. They're never slimy. They're not slimy at all. They're really smooth, quite beautiful. Their scales are made of kind of keratin, which is like our hair. So very durable. The scales stay on, but the slough on the outside comes off so they can grow each time. Now, I might show you on the other one. I'll have a look if I can see Calypso's, but she's calming down now. Usually pythons take a minute or two to calm down, and then they get quite cruisy. Alright, let's have a look at the bottom here. I'm just going to rest her up there. Alright, so now we're going down the bum end. Now, let me have a look. There we go. So just here, we've got an anal scale, and then we've got all these scales here, which are called subcaudal scales. So they're divided on this. When people are identifying snakes, they often look at the scalation of the snakes. You can nearly identify a snake from the skin if you have a good skin that's been shed. Things you look for are the number of scales across the mid-body. So you're counting each one of those until that bottom big one. And you look at the anal scale. Sometimes it's single. So on this one, we've got a single. They're usually single in this species. She's got a single anal scale just there. So that's actually a cloaca. And then she's got split subcaudal. So you can kind of see there's two on each side instead of just the one. And so that's how quite often you'll find your vet or someone might identify a snake if the head's chopped off and all they've got scales to work on. So that's really cool. Well, Dad, a children's python. Yeah, children's pythons are great too, really calm. Last year we were on tour and there's a python called a spotted python. Looks nearly identical to him, located in Queensland rather than over to the west more. I reckon we would have found nearly an Australian record-sized spotted python. An absolute whopper. It was only about 1.1, 1.2 metres, but they usually only grow to about 1 metre, so it was an old one. It could have told some stories, I reckon. So anyway, this is Calypso. She's a carpet python. I'm going to put her away, and we're going to go and check out Pandora, who's our blackhead. And there's something I want you to remember. Now, look at the bottom of her face again. She's got those little holes that she's opening her mouth a bit. Oh! I thought she was going to yawn. There's a cool thing about jaws, I'll tell you in a minute too. But I want you to remember those pits on the bottom when we go to the next snake. Now, final little thing, because they're quite obvious. When animals evolve, they lose things that they don't use. So worms don't have legs, they don't need them. Snakes don't have legs, they don't need them. For various reasons, things evolve to different areas for different things. There's niches, essentially, is a fancy word. If you want to look up niches after this, N-I-C-H-E, really interesting word. It essentially means there's a gap in the environment and something will fill it. You know, an animal will move in to fill it, and quite often evolution works in that way. That there's a gap in the environment, something will exploit that resource, meaning it'll go to eat that food or it'll live in that space. And it might evolve to what's in that space. So for this snake here, she's lost her legs, but what's been left behind are vestigial limbs, which means she doesn't use them anymore, but there's tiny little bone structures left behind where in evolution she used to have legs. So she's going to grab onto my umbrella in a minute. It's going to be a big pain in the butt, but right there, and I might have to show you a photo later. Let's see if we can see it. Oh, there we go. Just here. There's... Oh, she's shy. She's not letting me show you the bum area. And she's all over my umbrella. Hold on. She has tiny little legs just right near her cloaca there, near her bum. And that's left behind from evolution. So, super cool. Alright, we're going to go to the blackhead python now, so remember, pets here. I'm going to leave her out actually. She can go for a walk. She needs a little bit of sun, so Calypso's going to go for a walk while we get out Pandora. I'll show you how big she is on the ground. There she is. She's quite beautiful. She's quite dull at the moment, like I said, because she's about to shed. Now, we're going to go to the snake that I wouldn't use as a skipping rope. She's not as pleasant. She does bite, depending on how things go. We're usually all right, but I've got to be a little bit focused. She's not venomous, although if you look at her, she looks pretty nasty. But yeah, she's good. All right, you can see her down there. Here we go. Wish me luck. I'm going to take this umbrella off. Beauty. Had a win. Alright, so this is Pandora. She's a black-headed python. She's nice and calm today. Yeah, we just let him go in the yard. The yard's pretty closed up, so I'll turn it around in a minute and I'll show you what Calypso's up to. But when I let her out, she usually just cruises like that and just sits down and smells the air for quite a while. She loves it. Whistlebird coat, no, blackheads aren't poisonous, but they do look like it. Yeah, sun's coming out now. It's getting quite humid. Can you tell the difference between a venomous snake and non-venomous snakes by the way they crawl, move? No, not at all. Look, I used to be a relocator in Townsville years ago, so I got called out to snake removals. Normally, 90% of the snakes we would get were tree snakes, climbers. One day this couple told me that there was a snake that had been climbing around on their patio. They were pretty sure it was just a brown tree snake, and given that 95% of call-outs or so were tree snakes, I went out to there, searched 45 minutes on the property, couldn't find the snake, and they were adamant it'd be climbing up on the patio and up high and all sorts. I was just about to leave, and I think I'd seen one of the biggest eastern brown snakes, with the second most venomous snake in the world, at that property, and it was climbing. So venomous snakes can climb. They're not restricted to the ground. And likewise, snakes that live in the trees can also be in the ground. So no, you can't really tell by where they go and what they do. Actually, here we go. Calypso's just done a wee for us, which is wonderful because I want to have a yarn about that in a minute. But here we go. Look at that head. And likewise, snakes that live in the trees can also be in the ground. So no, you can't really tell by where they go and what they do. Actually, here we go. Calypso's just done a wee for us, which is wonderful because I want to have a yarn about that in a minute. But here we go. Look at that head. So this is Pandora. She's a black-headed python. Now, Calypso, the carpet python, her scientific name is Moralia spilota. This one here is Aspidites melanocephalus. So Aspidites means shield-headed, so she's got quite big scales on her head. The names usually often refer to something. And melanocephalus means black-headed. Cephalus is Latin for head, and melano is black. So I'm going to grab her head in a minute. You can see she's quite striped, quite beautiful, and her black head is really evident. So the theory behind why they have black heads is because the most vital organ in their body is in their heads, their brain, right? Quite often they live in areas that are cool as well, and so having a black head allows them to cool that head up very quickly in the morning and cool their brain, which is quite essential too. As well as that, they're nocturnal, so maybe their black heads help them hide at night if they hide part of their body in a hole or something, and then they can restrict what the prey is seeing. I'm just going to move in the sun a bit more so you can see me a bit better. Hopefully that's a bit better. All right. So the head grab. Here we go. She's been really beautiful today. Now, let's have a look. She bit me once and swallowed my whole pinky before she gave it back to me. Took about an hour. Wasn't real ideal. Blackheads are quite scary looking. They're just misconceived. The poor things. They're quite sweet. But yeah, they don't look too nice just because of their head. But yeah, usually they're quite nice. This poor thing, she bit me once and got the taste of me. I'd assume that she now thinks I'm tasty food. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it here. Let's see if we can make that focus. It says I've only got 60 seconds remaining, folks. I don't know what that means, but if it goes, I'll restart it again, so just join back in. Alright, so our blackhead here, if we look at the eye here, her eye is also black to match with her head, but if you look quite closely at one of these photos, you'll actually see the iris and everything in the middle, just like a normal eye. Quite weird, quite beautiful, but lovely. Now remember I said keep an eye out for the pits that we had on our carpet python down there? Doesn't have any pits at all. None. So there's a couple of theories behind that. One is that she is primarily a reptile eater. So she eats skinks, other small reptiles. She doesn't need the heat receptors to spot an animal because cold-blooded animals blend into the temperature of the environment around them usually. All Alright, we're coming back. Geez, we're coming back quick. G'day everyone, welcome back. So that hour went really quick. I'm going to go over a little bit more and show you a couple more things before we go. So maybe another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm glad everyone joined. I hope you all had fun today. So yeah, good stuff. Alright, so just reiterating what we were just talking about there. Poor darling, she doesn't like to be held by the head anymore. But she doesn't have those heat sensitive pits on the bottom of her jaw there or on the front of her nose. She eats reptiles, so presumably she doesn't need them. She's making me work this one. Presumably she doesn't need them to find her prey, which are reptiles, because the reptiles blend in with the same temperature of the environment. They think these snakes might be slightly more primitive than pythons because they lack those pits, but hard to say. So really cool, really beautiful. I'm going to let her out for a quick walk too. As you can see, she's keen to go for a walk. She's like a dog. She's about to get zoomies. All right. So Calypso's moving along too. You can see her just behind me there now. And then I've got a couple more things and then we're done. Now I did say just before that Calypso left us a nice little present on the ground. So she did a wee. But unlike the way we think of wee, there's different kinds of wee. So for every animal, we have, let's class it into 3 categories of wee. There's ammonia, which fish, aquatic animals have. That's how they wee. Then there's urea, which mammals, humans have. So we have that liquid wee, urea. And then there's uric acid. And so different animals, different kinds of wee, different ways, different excretory systems. But Calypso here, right there, has just left us a little version of her wee. Now I'm not going to grab that slightly wet one because that's pretty gross. I left a couple in Pandora's box here to show you. And they're dry and hard, so they're much easier to grab and show and a lot less disgusting. Alright, here we go. And I'm going to get a solid one too. Wonderful. Alright, here we go. So right at the front you can see the white bit. That is the wee. Essentially it goes hard after a while. That's uric acid. That's snake wee, really. The rest of it, I'm going to throw that away now. Don't need to hold on to that for too long. The rest of it is hair. It's pretty much leftover hair. So hair is made of keratin. It's a really hard substance that doesn't break down really well. So if I was to break this apart now, all you're going to see, it's going all over my phone. Love it. This is snake poo. Awesome. That's all little bits of rat hair. So she eats rats. That's her favourite food. Loves them, loves them, loves them. And all of this here is hair, snake poo. Yum, yum, yum. Grab the gross one. I am not going. Let's poke it going. Let's see how soft it is. It's all about observations, right? So let's dig in. Oh, it's gooey. It's quite gooey, like spongy. Yummy. All right, so that was our snake poo. Now, remember a couple of things with observations. Everything around you can find something. You can wonder why it's there, wonder why something's growing in a certain way. Why is that plant here? Geez, there's a snake there actually. Why is that snake there? It's because I let it out. Why is the snake going there instead of the other way? Why? So observation has so many different options. I highly recommend go and sit in your yard, or if it allows, go and sit at a local space with your family and just watch birds, watch their behaviour, watch what they do, watch if they're trying to mate with someone or flirt with another bird, or if they're feeding, or if they've got young, what they're doing with their young. There's so many different things that we can observe. Like, have a look at this. Here's a cycad. These are the old leaves. I only just noticed this yesterday. These are the new leaves coming out here. They're going to be so bright green. They're going to be gorgeous. They're going to be bright green like this shirt. And I'm not sure, but I would reckon that those old leaves will drop off. So it's just come into a season where it's like, yep, time for new leaves. Sweet, let's look good. All right. So they're pretty cool. So lots of observations around. Remember, it's not just eyes. We've got ears we can hear. You can observe with the ears. You can hear bird calls. That's the way a lot of birders identify birds. Just this morning, this is really gross. I smelt something in the yard, and I reckon this time of year these are a tropical fungus, but I reckon you'll probably have some of these in your yard if you've got mulch around. But this is what's called a stinkhorn fungus or fungi. The Americans say fungi. Drives me wild. So these are stinkhorn fungi mushrooms. Now if you have a look at that, you're going to see flies right on the top of that. Oh, it stinks down here. Alright, so instead of having birds or bees as pollinators, now these guys don't have pollen either. It's a little bit different, kind of similar though. They have spores. So the spores will fly around the area, and that's how they pollinate and spread. The spores, when they fertilise, form a sporocarp, and that will end up creating a new fungus underneath. So you can actually see under there, I'm gonna have to poke around a little bit, but just under here, there's more mushrooms with this. And you can see how this one here, he's come out of the ground. He's emerged from one of these sacs. So we're going to see about half a dozen, 8 or 9 of those stinkhorns in there in the next couple of weeks, and our house is going to stink. So lots of different things we can go through. My favourite animal, cockatoo. Pretty bloody close. Yep, I absolutely love palm cockatoos. Really, really beautiful. Probably one of my favourite birds. When we were kids, my brother and I, Shane Ross photo there, we grew up in Bamaga, and so palm cockatoos are a major part of our life. They would always be on the almond trees outside. You'd hear them calling, mating, playing around. They're just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, palm cockatoos would be up there with one of my favourite animals for sure. Now, a couple more things. Now, I would love if everyone gets the opportunity to do a couple of little research things for me today. One is, and you can send it through to the Cockatooers Facebook or whatever, but have a look around your own yard and find an animal or a plant, learn a cool fact about it, and share it with someone. Doesn't have to be me, but the way we learn, especially animals, and you'll see me get really excited sometimes when I learn something. My brother's seen this way so many times. I'll learn something and I'll go straight to him or someone and just be like, I don't care if you want to know this, but I've got to tell you because it's going to help me remember it better. And so I'll learn something about an animal, but what I'd love you to do today is, let's call it research. Go into your yard, see if you can find an animal or a plant you're interested in, and research is both out in the field and back in the office. So jump on your computer when you do, find out some cool facts, share it with someone, share it on your Instagram or your Facebook, or send it to me, and that's awesome. If you've got questions too, send them through and I'll do my best to answer them, but we'll do a little question session now. And the other thing I want you to do is, I've got a question for everyone. I want to know if you can find out for me why frogs don't have ribs. And if they don't have ribs, how do they breathe? So why don't frogs have ribs? And how do they breathe? It's a puzzler and it's really cool when you find out. But yeah, send us a message either on Instagram or Facebook when you find out, and I'll let you know my story anyway. But does anyone have any questions today where we can finish up? Hey, no worries, Jada and Nat. Whistlebird Co, no, I haven't seen a king cobra. Would love to. That'd be pretty unreal. Yeah, hi, mummying. Her body does look like a tiger snake. It's pretty weird, eh? All right, has anyone got some questions? Breathe through the skin. No, you've got to message it through. I can't tell you. But yes, frogs breathe through their skin. So just quickly on that, there's a couple of reasons why people always say to wash your hands or wet your hands before you handle frogs. Lots of people say, yes, it's because the frogs breathe through their skin, the salts on your hand hurt them. One of the other big ones is we lead a really chemical-based life. So detergents, soaps, shampoos, everything, those residues get left on your hands. So when you handle things like frogs, which try not to if you can, wash your hands just with fresh water, no soap, nothing. Just rinse your hands in fresh water before you handle frogs. But the really big one, especially in Australia, is we have a fungus. One of them's called chytrid. The other one's called rana fungus or something like that. What can happen is, if you're, especially as an ecologist or a researcher, you can have that fungus on your hands. And if you're handling 20, 30, 100 frogs a day, you can actually, and you pick up one of those frogs with the fungus, which kills them, and we've got a lot of species that have been lost to this. You can actually transfer that fungus from that frog to all the other 100 frogs that you touch for the rest of that day if you don't wash your hands. So it's not only for salts, it's because of chemicals, but also because of the fungus and parasites you might carry on you. Hey, no worries, guys. Really glad you enjoyed it. It's been fun for me too, because I had to rehash quite a lot of things that I'd forgotten. So, tetragonula, how's that? Hey, lizard roach, yeah, sick. Palmy, oh no way. Oh, I'd love to see some of those. That's unreal. So we've got a lady here that's a Cape York ecologist that's been working on palm cockatoos. They've had field cameras out in the field by the look of it, so at a guess, they might be looking at behaviour, mating, where they're nesting. So they nest in a tree called Eucalyptus tetradona, which happens to be one of the trees that's in a lot of mining areas, which isn't too good. But yeah, I'd be really excited to hear about that a bit more. No worries, Tani. Hey, Tani's nephew. G'day. Oh, that's awesome. Glad you loved it. Hey, Mason. Good on you, bro. Good to see you. Hey, no worries, guys. Any questions, please send them through. I can message them back, but glad everyone enjoyed it. That went for, as you can tell, that went for 70 minutes, so my voice is going. Okay, so oh, yep. So yes, okay. So you want to know, sorry, I didn't really touch on that. Venom and snakes, if we've still got a few people there, we're losing a few. But venom and snakes, so we have snakes that are front-fanged and rear-fanged have glands. When they bite, they can inject that venom. Some of our species, I think we've got about, I can't remember, 7 or 8 of the top 10 most venomous snakes in the world. Our Australian snakes are incredibly venomous. The most dangerous we have is the common brown, just because it's the second most venomous and it's incredibly common, so it's in a lot of places. And it's very aggressive. So don't pick up snakes because you don't know what you're dealing with. Some of them look nice but can be venomous. Even the one we have here is called a small-eyed snake. It's about as big as your shoelace, and it's just as venomous as nearly a taipan. I think it's in the top 10 as well. Cute little snake. Looks like a miniature red-bellied black snake, really, but it's tiny. It's really the size of a shoelace, so quite a venomous snake. So you've got to be careful with that sort of stuff. If you do go looking around your yard, just be careful of centipedes and spiders and that kind of thing too. But sorry, I didn't get to touch on snake hinges for the people that are left, or snake jaws. So a lot of people think that snakes dislocate their jaws when they eat. So pythons, a lot of things, have to eat really big meals. They've got a special bone in their body, or in their head. We all have it, but theirs is a bit different. It's called a quadrate bone. Our jaw hinges at one point. They have a bone that allows their jaw to hinge out and down, and then it gives them a lot more spread. And as well as that, our jaw here is fused. Snakes have 2 separate bottom jaws. So when they eat something, they can actually they hinge. That hinge there expands and allows their head to go wider and deeper, and their front jaws also get wider. I've got to find a snake now, so bear with me. Hopefully I haven't lost it. It might stir up the neighbours a bit if we do, but if you have any more questions, send them through. What's the shoelace called? It's called a small-eyed snake. Small-eyed snake, that one. Yeah, quite pretty, really beautiful. I do have to find a snake now. This will be fun. All right, guys, thanks for joining in. Love yous all. Enjoy isolation if you're there. There'll be another session on Thursday. Thursday's session is going to be sea turtles. So if you want to join in for sea turtles, we're going to go through a bunch of the research we used to do, lots of videos. That's going to be through Facebook and YouTube and through the computer as opposed, but I'll have that set up so everyone will be able to join in there. Should be an awesome little session. Sea turtles are really cool, and there's some really beautiful videos I'll get to share with you. But love yous all. Have an awesome day. Thanks for joining in and have fun. Don't forget to do some research and some observations.